All right, we're back after a big long break. It's the OnlyFantasy NBA podcast, your source for explicit and uncensored fantasy basketball content. And we've got all four of us here for the first time in a little while, I think. We briefly had four of us in the last episode. Shan.
Let's do this. We're back for 2023.
Yes. Nick.
Hi, guys. I'm back.
And Howie.
Yes, 2023. Let's hope it was better than 2022 and 2021 and
2020.
etc.
2020 was the worst, I think, and it's been slowly getting better ever since. All right. Yep, we're back, and it's been a while. We're all raring to go, I imagine. I can sense that we're all keen to get stuck into it, but there is an elephant in the room that must be discussed before we kick things off. Now, I had thought that I was on top of, the logic in the world that we weren't living in a matrix, that the world wasn't flat. I was pretty sure about the moon landing, but the events of yesterday, the events of yesterday have me questioning absolutely everything.
You obviously don't follow Andrew Tate, David, because as every Andrew Tate fan knows, we are in the Matrix.
In the Matrix? Okay, interesting.
A fictional Hollywood film from 20 years ago, we're in it.
But yes, look, everything's back on the table after yesterday. So to catch you all up, one member of this panel managed to pull off a trade that involved him dealing a trade heist. It involved him dealing 3 guys ranked outside the top 50, may or may not ever play another game of basketball again, all 3 of them. They're extremely injury prone. And he managed to trade those 3 individuals for LaMelo Ball, who's looking set to play out the remainder of the season, probably in top 10 contention. And
he's
Desmond
ranked
Bain,
11.
who's just about to get back, isn't he, or is he back? And
he's back.
He's back. And likely to be putting up solid numbers from here on out. So, Shan, can you tell us how you managed to pull off this heist of the century?
Well, it was weird. I sort of fell ass first into it. Many trades come about through a lot of work, and then some days you just receive a trade offer on your Yahoo account. And I had a busy day, and it came up, and I immediately went to accept. And you know what happened? We've changed our Yahoo settings so that you cannot accept a trade if a player has already played.
Yeah.
So I couldn't accept it. And I was like, oh my God, now I have to wait all day to see if I can get this. And then later on in the day, it went through. So very little negotiation. I just sort of lucked into it.
Yeah. What can we do, guys? I mean, I think it left 8 out of 10 fantasy GMs baffled, confused, outraged, perhaps.
Commissioner veto was something I was thinking about for a while then.
Yeah.
I don't know where I
who's
wanted
the
to
commissioner?
start the beef.
Who is the commissioner? Good point.
That'd be me.
But I made this point last year when there was what I thought was a pretty crazy trade as well. It's part of the game.
It is part of the game.
And to be honest,
Yeah, it happens.
And to be honest, I like that there's a few more trades now. 5 years ago, my big beef with our league was that no one's fucking trading. We play the entire season on draft day, and that's fucking it. So in that respect, I think it's fine. And you know what? I over a long period of time, I've come to trust the GM's intelligence who did the trade. And I just have to, I'm assuming there's something I haven't considered. And one thing I did think of last night was that actually, if you're building field goal, Zion Williamson is the #1 impact field goal player, assuming he plays again.
Yeah.
Assuming he plays again this lifetime. So I think there is some reverse logic in there somewhere. And we don't have to understand it. Guess what? Free country, long track record of success for the manager that did it. So I'm ready to wait and see.
Mm-hmm.
And Shan, I'll be interested to ask you this too, Shan. Sorry to monopolize this for a few seconds, but instinct told me that, geez, that's a good trade for you, and you're probably the heavy favorite now. I'm sure you've done analysis now. You've maybe seen some of the things I've seen. There is a risk element to it. There's a turnover, field goal wobbly. I still think it's a wonderful trade for you, Shad. But don't get me wrong. But there is an element of risk there, I think.
Yep. I use Basketball Monster, and it told me that it moved me from about equal third to quite clearly second. I don't want to give... Someone in this room is still projected to come first, but having said that, this is just Josh Lloyd's projections, and they change every day, and everyone in this room has been projected to come first at some point in the last month, so it varies a lot.
So I do my own math and projections independent of Josh Lloyd and stuff, and it's kind of very pen and paper type stuff, and I've got scores in the low 60s for 4 or 5 managers potentially.
So it could go either way.
There's
That's
scenarios where the top 5 can all be low 60s, and I think a low score might win it this year. So it's just
Interesting.
like,
It's your big segment for this week and every week. News time. What do you got for us?
Alrighty, news, and particularly focusing in on the injuries. There's a lot, as per usual. With Atlanta, you've got Clint Capella still out, so Okongwu's getting his chance. Who knows when Capella will be back, so keep riding Okongwu. At Boston, you got Marcus Smart out for a little while with a knee contusion, and Derek White's filling in nicely.
any thoughts of how long, Shane?
Oh, I don't know. I'm hearing very short term, but it's sort of up in the air. So it could be back next game, but there's a bunch like that where there's not really clear details. A big one is KD. Since our last meeting, KD has gone down with a knee. Is it MCL? Can anyone confirm?
MCL.
Yeah,
but
mid-Feb, they're saying.
It wasn't a heavy one. They were saying reassess in 2 weeks, which seems extremely optimistic to me for an MCL. More likely to be
They
above.
said a month, Dave. They said a
okay.
month. Yeah, out at least a month.
Yeah, I was hearing mid-Feb, and in his absence, you'd imagine Kyrie's going to go nuts, and maybe TJ Warren will get his ass into gear and get some points.
I actually watched that team pretty closely, and what tends to happen is that Ben Simmons takes a bit of a backward step when when all 4 are playing, and when one of them goes down, they tend to put the ball in Simmons' hand, and so Kyrie's going to shoot. He's going to go aerial. Whether that's a good thing remains to be seen.
That makes sense. And then at Charlotte, you've got Kelly Oubre's gone down with a hand injury until early February. So one of the McDaniels boys, Jalen, is a bit of a prospect in the short term. At Chicago, you got DeMar DeRozan's got a quad injury, but they're saying it's not very bad at all. Could be back any game.
When that fucking happened, it looked terrible. Did anyone see it?
No, I wasn't
He went
watching.
from
Not live,
dribbling
no.
and just collapsed on the spot, and I've gone, oh, Achilles,
Yeah.
it's
He's
Achilles.
gone.
Oh.
Those
Then he
sort
gets up
of
and
non-contact
rubs it off.
injuries when nobody's near them, that always looks bad.
But he was okay. He actually got a slight trip, as it turned out on replay. And so it's a minor quad. Good result for DeRozan owners.
Yeah, as soon as you pointed that injury out, Howie, I grabbed Pat Williams, but I've dropped him again already because it's only very short term apparently. Detroit are missing all of their big men. Isaiah Stewart's out for a short term. Jaren is out for a short term, and Bagley's out until late February. There's no one really to fill in though. They're just missing all their big men.
Noel, Christmas time, and the first. I used to love him back in the day, but he struggled in his first start, 23 or 4 minutes. He's a prospect, I think, for a few games, but yeah.
Sure, you might be able to ride him for a week. Steph Curry's back. Paul George is out again with hammy soreness. Could be back any day, but there's not much info on it.
Those Clippers.
AD's foot. There was some good news about it recently. They're still projecting late January, but I remember hearing something good about it, so it wouldn't surprise me if we hear something. Howie, have you heard anything about AD?
Yep. So credit to Woj here. About 12 days ago, Woj said in a 9 to 12-day timeline, they expect to be able to ramp AD's progress up. And returning to LA, which they have now, he starts the ramping up process for a 7 to 10-day window in which to return. The concern is, of course, the nature of the injury, which we now have more details on. He has a bone spur, and it makes the area around the bone spur weaker, and you get stress fractures around the bone spur. They've healed for the time being. The bone spur remains. So the prospect of further stress injuries is possible. He needs surgery to remove the bone spur, which they plan at this stage to do in the off season.
I reckon I might have some bone spurs. The fantasy implication aside from AD is for Thomas Bryant, who's been dominating in his absence.
True.
But you'd imagine that gets
Dominating?
mostly minimised when AD returns.
That's some big games. That's some big
Yeah,
games.
I mean, I want to do this section, so I'm going to keep going through. But if you want to look up his average over the last month, Nico, I bet you'll be impressed. I would guess it's within the top 60.
I'm just giving you shit because I know you have, Tom.
Yeah,
So all good.
fair enough. At Miami, pretty much everyone on the Heat roster has a niggle at the moment and misses every third game at the moment. Not many players playing there, but it's all short term. Milwaukee, there's been good news for Middleton. He'll be back very soon. He had knee soreness. It's not a good thing to hear. He came back from a different kind of injury and then had knee soreness immediately, and everyone thought, uh-oh. But there's a good report he's training with their G League team currently and could be back any game now. Cat. Karl Anthony Towns at Minnesota got a calf, still back late Jan. So haven't heard any updates on that recently. So if anyone's got anything,
Nah, other than the fact he did the look back, and I just don't believe he's back late January. The look back is the fatal sign that you've
Achilles.
fucked something.
Yeah.
Well, it might not be he's popped his calf. He's popped it bad. I mean, ask Kane about the look back. You think someone's hit you, but they haven't. You've done in the clear blue sky, pop, and that happened to Kane. He's back into January, maybe.
Yeah.
But wow, I think it's longer.
You know what? I'm about to throw to you again, Howie, and it makes me think you happen to be in the mix of all the injuries this year. You've had a bit of a run. So I'm moving on to the Pelicans and Ingram with his toe. Who knows? It's like when it happened, it was thought to be something small, and he's just been out forever. Have you heard anything about when he's coming back?
No. But yes, he's meant to be returning on the current road trip. There's 3 games left in that current road trip. He missed training. He missed scrimmage a couple of days ago. You know what? I've played fantasy basketball for 22 years. I've got bad vibes. This is bad juju around Brandon Ingram. A couple of years ago when I was way up second challenging for the win, I had Robocov. He went out with a minor injury in about December. Day to day. He never returned. And in February, they shut him down. And I was like, oh, you fucking kidding me. Bit of a vibe like that. Having said that, he might return in the next couple of games. It's so up in the air. He's taking tons of shots in shoot around. He's shooting threes for 30 minutes in shoot around every day they play.
Yeah.
No sign of him coming back at any point. I don't know.
From a team perspective, I don't think they're desperate to get him back. I mean, obviously, having him back at full speed for the playoffs, they seem to be locked into a high seed. What are they, second in the West at the moment? They're playing really well.
Just lost Zion, though. I think I expect a bit of a hiccup from this point forward. I actually thought Zion going down. I was like, oh, look at this. Ingram will come straight back in here, and he hasn't. So.
Well, that's where I'm moving next. His teammate Zion with his hammy, probably the player we've mentioned most on this podcast. I had a look into it. I figured one of you guys would bring up my trade, so I had a look into the timeline for his injury, and he's going to be reevaluated in 3 weeks from when it happened, which would be sometime within the next few days. They're going to reevaluate him. That's not saying he's coming back then. The estimates are still up in the air, late January probably, but expect an update on Zion within the next half week to a week.
Why would they rush back Zion or Ingram or anyone else who happens to be injured? They're playing really well. I just think they'll be extra cautious, and they should be with those two guys.
Correct.
They were playing well, but they've gone 1-1 since losing Zion, haven't they? And they lost to someone shit. Am I wrong?
Yeah, they've gone off the boil a little. I haven't got it in front of me, but I've been following them pretty closely, and I feel like over the last couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, they were the cream of the league. Yeah.
They've won 5 of their last 10 matches, so they've definitely evened out.
Yeah. So that makes me think they might rush him back.
They've got to bring someone back. They'll drive. They'll start falling real soon if they don't bring someone back.
Yep, fair enough.
I think.
Yep.
Then going to Oklahoma, we've got Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Not that he's fantasy relevant, but with him and Poku out, and Poku's out till March, it's meant Dave's boy, who he had faith in, but ended up on my team, Jalen Williams, getting some minutes. He's been so good recently. I got no idea what the stats have been, but he gets a lot of steals and blocks for a sort of swingman player.
He's just an incredibly heady player. Like, he just looks like he's been playing for 5 years in the league already. He's just leadership and composure, decision making. Yeah, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. And then Phoenix
is going to be a star.
Phoenix have been cursed. I would hate to have to watch Phoenix games. We got Booker since our last podcast went down, and he's out until mid-February.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about it because this idiot, he's out injured, decides that he wants to play on Christmas Day, comes in for a couple of minutes, aggravates the injury, and now he's out. He was out for a month. So, jeez, man. I guess
one of the Christmas Day headline.
Oh, what a moron, honestly.
Then you got Cam Payne, who's out until late January. Not fantasy relevant, but he would have been filling in for Chris Paul, who's in and out of the lineup with niggles at the moment. Mm-hmm. You got Cam Johnson, who might come back soon, so that might be fantasy relevant. San Antonio, you got a big one with Devin Vassell, could be out for quite a while with a sore knee. sort of hearing late February, but it's quite unclear. And then the last two teams we got at Utah and Washington. Utah, you got Kelly Olynyk down at the moment with an ankle injury, could be out until late January. So it seems Walker Kessler's going to get more minutes, which is something Howie had his finger on the pulse of right at the start of the year. It might be Walker Kessler time. And then lastly, Washington's got Brad Beal with a hammy out until mid-January.
Just another thing on Kessler, like the Jazz have, and we probably all could have predicted this, but the Jazz have really slid off from their early season form, getting to the point where you have to question whether it's really worth pushing for a play-in spot with that roster as it is currently composed. So we might start to see some trades coming up towards a trade deadline, I suspect. We'll see.
It's funny, though. Everyone thought they were going to be able to hold the Lakers over the hot coals with the trades, and it's not looking like that at the moment. The Lakers are playing not just hardball anymore. They've apparently said they're not keen to trade Westbrook. They've said they're definitely not trading the first-round picks, and all you people that were holding out hope you're going to take us to the cleaners, we're not even really looking to trade at this point.
Yeah. I actually like Westbrook, but not as a fantasy option, which is weird.
Oh God, no.
And it's funny because I've got him on my team in fantasy, but I don't like him in fantasy. But I do think in reality, he'd be a great guy to have coming off your bench.
Obviously, too many categorical weaknesses there for fantasy. When he was averaging a 30-point triple-double, you could justify it, but not these days.
He was still ranking pretty average then, too.
Yeah, he was.
So.
Yeah, he was. Relative to people's perspective on.
Yeah.
On this topic, Howie, did you see the interview with LeBron where the reporter was setting him up sort of with so many leading questions, trying to get LeBron to say, make some trades now, bring me in some talent. And he defended them all, blocked all the questions away, and then walked away and then turned around and yelled back out, you know what we effing need to do or something. So implying that LeBron will push for trades if he has that kind of power.
Oh, look, I think without a doubt, the Lakers can't win with the current roster. I mean, I think that's a given. The media, right up until LeBron signed his extension, they were adamant. He's not signing an extension. Why would you? They refuse to do anything. He signs a fucking 3-year extension, essentially, 2 years with a player option. And now they're like, he's going to demand out of it. He's going to demand out of it. I mean, the clowns in the NBA and sports media in general don't know a fucking thing. I don't think LeBron signs the extension only to demand a trade this summer. I expect him to push really hard for us to make moves this summer, and I think we will. We cleared $33 million in cap by Westbrook walking or signing for a much lesser deal. We get another draft pick becomes available to be traded as well. We're not going to sit on our laurels, I don't think. And as far as I can see, and the media doesn't like reporting this part of it, there's players still saying they'd be happy to go to LA, according to the things I've seen. DeRozan, Levine are among them. And so you add a DeRozan or a Levine to the current Lakers setup, and I'm thinking it looks a whole lot better. Sure. There's still some wrinkles because I think we have to trade for some of those, for anyone we want, because it gives us more money to trade. Dave, I'm not across these kinds of things.
So you're well over the cap, and in fact you're quite significantly into the luxury tax. So you can't just sign Russell Westbrook to a smaller contract and then free up cap space, because that will just get you out of the luxury tax, if you know what I mean. So there are multiple sort of like gateways. So you hit like a soft cap, and then there's another cap where you go into the luxury tax. Sure. So you have to. So in order to have it has salary that you can sign players into, you have to be under the soft cap. Yeah. So what I understand the situation to be is if Westbrook walks, it clears $33 million in cap, and he's owed interesting. He's getting $47 million, so you lose $40 million to the ether. But if we trade things, we can apparently trade in about $42 million in well, if you traded Westbrook, you could trade his entire salary for for pieces that fit into his salary amount.
So all my hopes reside with Chicago Bulls, because I'm not that keen on Bogdanovich and I'm not that keen on Clarkson or anything like that. I think Levine or DeRozan would be game changers for the Lakers.
I'd love to see either of them actually with the Lakers. I reckon they're both would fit in really nicely, and if anything, probably DeRozan a little bit more. With LeBron's kind of passing, and Levine likes to kind of distribute a bit himself too. Maybe DeRozan to be the hometown kind of choice.
Oh yeah, I think Levine's hometown LA too, isn't he? Wasn't he
UCLA?
Yeah.
And DeRozan was USC, and Compton from Compton.
Everyone's from LA.
Everyone's from LA, yeah.
The guy I'd love to see go to the Lakers just here. Oh no, I won't say that.
Is he good?
Is that about the Catholic Church?
I might have just blown a bit of a secret, but the guy I'd like to see come to LA would be Kuzma. Just having played at the Lakers before, the fan base love him. I reckon he's a hell of a player, and there's been rumors that he would love. Well, it's pretty clear he would love to go back to the Lakers. I reckon
Really?
he'd be a lovely third wheel there.
Interesting.
I reckon they got to aim higher than that.
Well, I mean, it's just about what would they want from him? He's not worth the sort of. I mean, people are trying to pry our future first office, which at this point might be
He's
quite
not
high.
worth that.
I'm not trading a top 5 pick for Kuzma.
No.
I am for Levine or DeRozan.
Not proposing
So-
how it'll happen, just saying it keeps coming up. I've seen it on my timeline a lot, and whether that's just Laker fans who love the guy and want him back, I'm not sure. But I would like to see him there. I reckon that'd be a good narrative.
The next segment is Fantasy Line of the Week. Nick, what do you got for us?
Oh, excellent. Cool. Let me get that fantasy line of the week.
It's got.
There's
I
been some
mean,
good ones.
if this is not Luka Doncic's 60,
Oh, yeah.
60, 20, and 10 effort.
Oh, it's Donovan Mitchell, 71, though.
Okay, so Donovan Mitchell, I just look sometimes when they have a couple of really good games, I like to throw in them both just to kind of show like the kind of streaks that these guys are in. So Donovan Mitchell, I've edited out a couple of games in between the 3rd and the 11th. 71 points is pretty rare to kind of see. You see a lot of guys get 50 points, you see even fewer get 60, and occasionally someone blows up and gets 70. So I'm trying to think, who was the last guy to get 70? Was it Devin Booker a couple of years ago?
You know what is extremely rare? 60 points, 21 rebounds, and 10 assists, which has literally never happened in the history of the NBA.
Never happened.
That's also pretty rare. I believe.
And if it wasn't for the 16 or 22 free throw,
I was waiting for you. That was what you were going to bring up.
predictions, he would lead the league in free throw percentage
Well done.
from hiders. Let's just call them
Hey,
hiders.
save it for later.
Yeah,
Luke.
we'll get onto that in a sec.
But yeah, Donovan Mitchell, 71 points just doesn't happen that often. Look, it's not the kind of fantasy game that I like just because he doesn't have the rounding on the other things. I'd almost take like 60 points on the nose and 2 blocks and a steal just to kind of fill it out from a fantasy point of view. But that's just me. Look, it's a fantastic game. Donovan Mitchell, I'll give him line of the year so far. We missed a couple at the end of the year because we didn't do all the podcasts, but I'm kind of judging this on what's been done this year. I have circled and the reason why Luka didn't get that 60, 21, and 10 with 2 steals and a block, you'll see here, I've circled the date. It's outside of the scope there, David. Yep. So that was on the 28th of December. So look, that's a brilliant game. I would argue that Luka's game is better, like what you were saying.
Yeah.
However, I don't think I can actually incorporate that into this kind of thing because I'd have to go back. It's nice and easy to cut it off by a year. So on January 1, to follow up that 60, 21, and 10 historic night, he's followed it up with another 51.9 assist game, 4 steals and a block, if you don't mind, and lazy 6 3-pointers. He shot a paltry 9 of 15 from the line.
0 turnovers.
Some of us were high on his free throw percentage, and he's kind of.
Don't get me wrong. If you tank free throws, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's the greatest player in the league if you tank free throws pretty much and turnovers. Yeah, so he's played really, really well, and we all know he's on a streak at the moment. So let's hope he can continue it going on and maybe just prove a few people wrong with getting a better clip from the line. Giannis, there's some pretty good games. So that counts as a quadruple double, does it? With 12 turnovers on January 5th.
It does.
So 30 points, 21 rebounds, 10 assists.
So if you get a triple double with 10 turnovers, they call it a triple double. What do we call this?
Yeah.
A quadruple double with 10
triple.
turnovers. We're going to have to come up with a pitty name for it anyway.
And you know what? Look at this other game. Look at the one on January 4th here. He's made 15 to 16 from the line. For someone who is a bit of a Luka Doncic from the line, that's actually awesome. Wow. 15 to 16. He's locked in on that night. I don't like his January 5th game's field goal percentage, just shooting at under 40%, which is pretty average. So look, if he had to maybe tighten things up a bit there, he probably would have had like a 50, 20, and 10. So yeah, then we're talking Luka territory. Keep up the good work, Giannis. You just need to tighten things up and come back into fantasy relevance. We'll talk about this more.
We'll be getting onto that a little bit later, but Giannis might be coming up on one of our lists.
I was just going to go to the next slide, which has got some honourable mentions.
Cool. I was just going to say, quite controversial, the Donovan Mitchell line too.
I'll take it back so you can talk to it.
The tip in, he had 56 points towards the end of regulation, and ran up to the ring while his ball was still in the air, shooting a free throw to tip it in. NBA admitted in the aftermath they made a mistake, and he goes on to score 15 or so points in overtime.
It wasn't just
13
that.
in overtime.
It wasn't just that. After he got the ball back, he shuffled his feet twice under the rim.
Yes.
So he travelled 3 times on that play. Outrageous. Anyway.
Look, it's no big deal. Just the NBA refs are just not good at what they do.
And you know what? Sometimes they don't let the truth and the right call get in the way of a good game and a good storyline, like a player scoring 70 points, for example. And referees are not immune to that kind of thinking too. So honourable mentions. I've got Howie's boy Kawhi here, because look at that. He knows how to shoot his free throws. 12 of 12, 75% from the field, 12 of 12 from the line, 3 threes, 9, 4. He's got 2 turnovers too, which is moderate, 4 steals, only 1 block, 33 points.
Well,
he needs to do that on back-to-back games.
Because Jimmy Butler had a game yesterday, which is better than that line. And it's very similar, only better. And it hasn't made the honourable mentions list, but Kawhi.
I had to look at it.
He's been given the Anthony Davis treatment. Excluded from the list.
I didn't like Jimmy Butler's line as much as Kawhi's here. So, yeah.
How so? In what way?
I don't know. I had to look at Jimmy because I saw you guys banging on about him. I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. I'm going to have to include Jimmy here or Howie will get the shits up. But I had to look and I was like, nah, I think Howie'd appreciate Kawhi's game here.
I like it. I like the way you play this. Deliberately antagonistic.
All good.
I appreciate it. All right.
I got to have a little bit of banter in here too. And to be perfectly honest, I think we're well aware that this is probably not going to happen again. Kawhi's got to have another month off before he can pull out a performance like that. He's not a Luka or a Nikola. Look at Jokic's games here. You know, I've highlighted 2 of them from the back end of December, but they were phenomenal games. He averaged, and I believe he still is averaging. I think he's almost got a triple-double now in the game, which is going on. And he's averaged a triple-double from like the start of December through to now. He's still averaging a triple-double. The dude's just doing really everything.
It's interesting too. He starts slow every year.
He did, and he started off kind of trying to bring his teammates in there. He's helping guys like your Wings and your Aaron Gordons and all these kind of guys. But mainly he's been able to get these 40 points, 38-point games himself rather than just going and getting like 19 points, 10 assists, 12 rebounds kind of thing. I say it's an amazing game, but he's got a lot more scope in him. I'm loving his percentages. Like you can see there, 58, 76, 62, 64. He's getting a couple of threes a game. He's shooting like in those last 3 games. He's got 100% from 10, 8 and 5 shots, missed a couple, 7 and 9 in one game, in the big game there. Yeah, he's a freak, being ranked number 1 for the last month or so. So not on totals, but over that month.
I think Denver are top of the West now. First
they're rolling.
Killing it.
They're rolling. I've got Aaron Gordon on my side. I did have Bruce Bowen on my team for a little while too, but I had to kind of move him on for someone else. And I've got Jokic. So been watching a lot of their games and geez, they're fun to watch. And the last one there is Joel Embiid had a massive game on January 3rd, 42 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, got a few turnovers, a steal, a block, couple of threes, 10 of 10 from the line, and 15 of 24 from the field. So
he's a good
it's not
player.
too shabby either.
Sweet. All right. Moving on to the next segment. So we're going to have a look at the best and worst of fantasy so far in the season. This was intended to be kind of like an end of year sort of thing. We're going to start with the players that have overperformed based on expectations, preseason expectations. These are the kind of guys that you'd expect to see on the teams leading at the top of the pointy end of the standings of standard leagues, Yahoo leagues. So I've got a few stats here for us. I'll throw them out and then we can dig a little bit deeper into the underlying reasons behind them. I've based this on totals rather than averages. So there's going to be a high level of representation for injured players in the bads. But we'll start with the goods. So Kevin Durant, average draft position was 5th. And is currently the number 1 ranked player in fantasy hoops. So I thought I'd throw him out there. Not the biggest differentiation between...
What do you mean by number 1 ranked player in fantasy hoops?
In totals.
Yeah, he's 4th on averages, Howie. Might be 1st on totals, I'm hearing from Dave.
First on totals. Tyrese Halliburton, average draft position of 13. currently ranked 3 on totals for the season. So we're going to see higher representation for guys that have played a lot of games in this list.
Leading in assists, isn't he, Halliburton? So
I think he might still be leading in assists, but I know that
pretty
James Harden's
pretty valuable.
James Harden's put up a string of 15 assist games or something recently. He's been crazy.
What's extraordinary about Halliburton is that I really rated him in the preseason. I thought the average draft position of 13 was too high, and he's outperformed it.
Yeah.
So he's had a really, really good year.
He just hasn't really been injured at all either, so unlike a lot of other players in the league. Donovan Mitchell, probably ranking even higher on averages, but on totals, his ADP of 24, significantly outranked by his current total rank of 8th.
Someone here called him shit. I don't remember who it was. It might have been someone named Dave.
Next up, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Gorgeous Alexander. Average draft position of 45 ADP. Current ranking on totals, 5th in the league.
Okay, but are we confident in him having a equally or comparable back half of the season?
No, we're not, because there's every chance that he's going to get shut down at some point, but we'll ride him while he's there.
Yeah, you should trade him, Dave, to me. Yeah.
We're starting to get into some real heavy hitters now. Lauri Markkanen, average draft position of 90. Average draft position of 90, currently ranked 7th on totals.
He's 5th on averages too.
Yeah, insane.
That's the last 14
Brook
days.
Lopez.
14th.
He's pretty good then too.
He's pretty good overall, but yeah.
Brook Lopez, this might be the heaviest hitter of the lot. Average draft position of 117, currently ranked 12th on totals.
Yeah. Right. I wish I picked him. I can remember looking at his name on drafting, and I'm just like, he's going to be good. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I can get someone else. I already had 2 bigs. I already had Miles Turner and Jokic, but he was one of those guys. If I didn't get either one of those, I would have jumped all over him and probably got him for an absolute steal. So in being successful at targeting other premiums, I missed him.
I can tell you what my thoughts were leading up to the draft. I just thought he was one of those guys that you knew what you were going to get. Like he seemed to be reasonably consistent. Obviously, really nice contributor in threes and blocks, but seemed to just be slowly winding down his career, and you were just going to get some chippy stats in a few categories from him, but nothing outstanding. And look, he's really having an Indian summer. He's just crazy.
I was really onto him last year. I owned Portis, and I was so keen to hold him, and he just did fucking nothing when he came back.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a few years ago, Dave. I watch Fred VanVleet at the moment, and I was one of the first people to be on top of VanVleet before he got good. And who did they have? They had Lowry, and Lowry went down for about a month, and I grabbed VanVleet like, yes, here it is, here it's going to happen. And he was fucking terrible. And I ended up dropping him. I used him way longer than I should have. The following year, I'm like, fuck VanVleet. No fucking way. And he's fucking top 25.
He's a millionaire, yeah.
Really
that happens so often. All right, moving on. OG Anunoby, average draft position of 60, currently ranked 16 on totals.
All on steals too.
Yeah,
all on the back of his steals. Geez, the Toronto team's painful to have players on though. It's just 2 good games, 1 shit game. 2 good games, 1 shit game. For every Toronto Raptor, it's a frustrating fantasy team from my perspective.
Interesting you're talking about Fred VanVleet. I mean, I know his ranking's still solid, but geez, he's shooting 37% from the field for the season. I mean, that's, oh my God.
Wow.
Anyway, I've got one here for you, Nico. Miles Turner. Average draft position of 41, currently ranked 19 on totals.
Yeah, on totals too.
And
for an
probably
injury,
even higher on averages, yeah.
He is. I think he's in the top 10 on averages. But look, I'm quite happy. And are we talking later on about what we might have miscalculated?
Yes, we certainly will be.
Miles will feature in that. I believe I've already made an apology to Mr. Turner, but I might have to back over it again. He's been quite solid. I have got an interesting take on it a little bit later. Yeah, just a fantastic percentage block kind of guy, a compliment to guys. I get all these guys that score a lot, and I think you guys will probably know from looking at a few of my teams over the years. I get a lot of guys that are offensive, kind of easy, kind of popular stat guys, like your rebounds, assists, and points. So I think for someone who does that, it's quite important to have a guy like Miles or, like the old Sean Marion or someone like that who's like sneaky good and does these other things that you just they're harder to get. So it's obviously showing in his rankings.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really hard too because for 4 or 5 years we've all been waiting. We've all been drafting Miles Turner, grabbing him whenever we could in the hope he would be this guy. And it's taken 4 or 5 years for him to finally be that guy. He's always had that sneaky ability, and he's very rarely lived up to it.
He had an interview at the end of the last game that he played, and he said, but the interviewer asked him about, his feelings on finally getting to play centre, play the 5 every game, big minutes, and he's like, he's absolutely loving it and just wishes he had the opportunity over the last few years.
You're still going to trade him?
He's just, who knows?
What the fuck is wrong with NBA coaches, man? I tell you fucking what. They have these star multi-million-dollar athletes, and they just go, no, we're just going to sit you for 3 years.
Yeah.
Bad fucking luck. And if you don't crack under that pressure, well, we'll start using you later. Is there something wrong with them? I mean, what's the logic behind doing that sort of shit? Don't you want to be good straight away? You want to be good later? Are you waiting
want to speculate about personalities there? Like maybe he's an asshole. I don't know.
Who knows? I've got one
more. The coaches
trying to sell season tickets. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, true.
This is the Isaiah Ryder factor. Doesn't matter if Isaiah Ryder's a head case. He's good.
Yeah, true.
Play him, assholes.
It's true.
One more before we get into a deeper discussion. Nick Claxton, average draft position of 126. Current rank on totals, 23.
That's pretty handy.
Yep. That's the kind of thing that builds your season.
I don't use totals as ranks, so some of these ranks are quite surprising to me. Just because I've never really ever looked at totals as a rank, and I understand the logic because that's what's actually happening. But I don't know.
No, that's fair. I get it. For this one, I wanted to see the sort of the impact on the impact on the stats that the teams up towards the top of the ladder have accumulated. And
I can feed into that, Howie. Claxton on averages has been ranked 31, so still fits the bill perfectly for what Dave's discussing. And most of the guys, I did my little look based on averages, and most of the guys Dave was saying that was the same guys. There's only 2 guys that came up on my list for overachieving who haven't come up on Dave's, it's plain as day why they didn't, because they're based on averages. Is one of them your all-time favorite player in fantasy hoops? Correct. Triple J, Jaren Jackson, and the other one is one of my other favorites, Kristaps. They both on average.
Lead off the discussion then, Shane.
Well, where are they? Jaren on average is 13, and Kristaps 16. So just going by draft day price, but clearly Jaren was injured for first month.
Mm-hmm. So is Kristaps 16 on averages or
Correct.
Totals?
Averages.
Oh.
And he's played 37 games, so he's probably good on totals as well.
I've got him at, it doesn't matter. I had him at 18th. I thought LaMelo was 16.
I'm using Basketball Monster. What are you using, Nick?
I'm looking at the Yahoo one.
That's fair. That's
much
fair,
of a muchness.
As you guys know, my theory is that there's something wrong with the Yahoo ranks this year. It's taken them 2 days. They've taken them 2 days to update their ranks, so I'm using Basketball Monster too. So fair play.
Cool. Anyone else that you wanted to raise there? So you've got Jaren Jackson Jr. and I think you're spot on there. I mean, he's just been blocking shots at a level that I didn't expect from him. I know that he's a great shot blocker. Don't get me wrong, but geez, my God,
he's another one. We've been waiting years for him to come good, and who'd think it'd ever happen? Fucking bang, motherfuckers! I'm good.
Well, with Jaren, it's always been 2 things. It's been injuries and foul trouble. So he was injured for the first month, so that's still happening, and he's still in foul trouble. So he's only averaging 26 minutes a game, and ranked 13th.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. All right, Nick, who have you got for us?
No, look, we've mentioned a few of my guys already. So the only ones I'd be interested in are the obvious ones. Miles Turner. I've been very, very high on him. I'm a little bit disappointed in several of the stalwarts, these point guards, which are like first and second rounders, kind of just letting things go a little bit.
We're going to talk about
We're going
to talk about the negatives in a sec. The bad guys.
Oh, okay.
So So if you've got any other good guys,
I'll leave the good guys for now. I'll save a bit for the bad guys.
No problem.
Well, I have one to add because I listened quite closely to everything you were saying, Dave. What was Mitch Robinson's average draft position?
I don't have that in front of me, so yeah, if you can.
His averages rank is 49.
I can look it up. Give me a second. I'll have it for you.
Top 100, I don't think. So I reckon he's a pretty good emerger as well. And a bit like JJ and also Miles Turner, it's a few years coming on. Maybe he'll be good. Maybe he'll be good, and he's finally putting it together. He's getting minutes as well.
Yep.
Agreed. You're 47 and you probably paid, what, $5 on draft day? $4?
I believe I paid $3.
Yeah.
So that's a bargain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Cool. So let's move on to the bad guys. Actually, I had a couple of other good guys that I wanted to put in here. I thought this might be an opportunity for me to talk about Jason Tatum.
Sure.
It was one. I mean, we failed to properly capture that first episode that we tried to record. But one of the things that I went off on a bit of a tangent, on a bit of a rant about, was the potential for Jason Tatum as a guy being picked in the top 10 to really step it up and become a star of the competition. I think we've seen that happen. He's pushing near the 30 points per game kind of mark, and obviously the Celtics are flying high at the top of the standings, so everything's going well for him, and he is becoming one of the players, the great players in the league. He will be one of the guys of this generation, along with the guys that we expect, like Giannis and Luka and Jokic. So I think Tatum is going to be up there with those guys.
He's doing it with shooting as well. I have a private concern, and I really like Boston. Unlike most LA fans, I actually think I've always been a real admirer of Boston, the way they go about it, and I love the city as well. So when you love a city, and I had such fun nights sitting in Louis Bar near Fenway watching Celtics games, so I just have nothing but positive feelings. I have a genuine concern about the way they play, Dave, and I'll be interested in your perspective on this. Tatum, wonderful. Jaylen Brown as well, wonderful Berkeley boy. I can't have many more higher things to say about Jaylen Brown, but boy, if they're shooting well, they're dumping shots. If they're shooting bad, fuck, they're dumping shots. If they're dribbling well, they are dribbling through 4 and 5 guys. If they're dribbling badly, well, they're still trying to take on 3 and 4 and 5 guys. I wonder how this is all going to come together in the highest heat of the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I think they'll sweep a couple of series. I think they're that good. But when the pressure pinches and whoops, Jaylen Brown's dumping shots and taking on 3 guys isn't working, I wonder what their plan B is. What do you think, Dave? I know you're a big fan.
So there's a major, the major narrative around the Celtics this year is how different they are from last season. Last season, we went to the finals on the back of our defense, our team defense. And previous coach got
sexual offender.
Got fired.
Udoka.
Sexual chocolate.
Ime
Udoka. Yeah.
So
that's it.
Under Ime Udoka, basically from mid-season, we became one of the best defensive teams that the league has ever seen statistically. And that was what really made the difference for us. We were about a 50-50 team and then went on a crazy run in the second half of last season. And it was all based on the defense. Whereas under Joe Mazzulla, it's been the complete opposite. Defense has fallen right away. And we had become an incredibly effective and efficient offensive team. But as you say, like, defense normally wins championships. I mean, that is just a saying that has stood the test of time because shooting offensive production tends to be a little bit more variable. And I think you're right on the money there, Howie. If we can't find a more consistent application on the defensive end, then we are opening ourselves up to like a surprise upset in a playoff series. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. All right, let's move on to the bad guys. So I've got some stats here. Average draft position, Giannis Antetokounmpo. 3.
Poor Bez.
3.
He's the worst.
And current on totals, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 125.
Fuck. Come on, Bez, give it to me.
It's worse on averages.
Oh, it's even worse on averages.
150.
Oh my God.
That's not right.
Jeez.
Hang on.
It's really
That's not
amazing.
Right.
That's happened the way that it has.
154.
154. Jeez. Whilst you're looking that up, Howie, the next one.
How has he gone? So remember, 100. I got 131 on Basketball Monster, Shan.
Still pretty awful.
But
though.
even so, well, it's right here.
Still bad, yeah.
But, remember a few weeks ago when I brought this up and he was actually 80 at the time. There's a wild variability to the ranks this year. a
He was in the honourable
period.
mentions too, so he hasn't been a slouch. And he
Yes.
did have that 15 out of 16 free throw game too in that period. So
True, but his free throw in
Strange.
general is just so incredibly
Yeah.
variable, you know?
He's getting
yeah.
turnovers and he's not getting steals and blocks.
Yeah, that's the thing. The defensive production is not great. So Karl Anthony Towns, average draft position 10th, current ranking on totals 132. Obviously, this is heavily based on his injury.
Yep.
And the next one is as well. LaMelo Ball, average draft position of 13, current ranking of 168. Look, so the reason that I'm using totals here is this is an indication that certain GMs are going to be down the bottom of the ladder at the moment because they drafted these guys with an expectation. They committed draft capital to these guys that just have not produced anything for them.
Well, Ball's been about line ball in terms of, I think he was about 13th of
13th
like projected,
ADP.
and his average is 16. So he's doing what everyone thought he would
You can
do, but he
certainly,
just had a hiatus.
As an old LaMelo Ball owner or a brand new, fresh LaMelo Ball owner, you can look forward to LaMelo Ball producing fantastic stats in the second half of the season. Absolutely.
It's hard to overstate the impact of injuries in a fantasy league,
Absolutely.
especially in a competitive one. When I lost AD, for example, I do a lot of my own math. I don't use the Josh Lloyd stuff. So when I had AD, I was 190 points on any given average 10 days full boot of players playing in my team. 19 points per player per game. So 190 was what I was working with. AD's 28 points get taken away. I'm down to 162, and I've got to choose someone to replace him with. 190 had me second on the average scoring for our league. 177, 178 if I play like healed or something. Has me fucking third last.
Yeah.
That's how impactful it is.
Yeah.
To tie a bow under what you're saying, Howie, I'm glad you mentioned AD. I had in my notes for best, I had AD in brackets. Prior to the injury, he was like the pick of the draft, him or Lowry. At that point, it was like they're the two biggest steals for sure.
Yep.
So that's just a brutal one.
It is. It's horrible.
Yeah, it sucked ass. Yep.
Hey guys, when
more.
we were just talking about LaMelo there, I just want to quickly show you something.
Go for it.
The dudes, I think he's actually going to outperform actually what we thought at the start of the season.
Hey, quite possible.
He's been fucking great.
I mean, the field
Look
goal
at him by
percentage
month.
isn't great, but
He obviously missed October, November, December, January. Look at his assists there. That's the money.
I mean, it's the threes is the money for me.
Yeah.
4.2 threes a game, 4.5 threes per game. I mean, that is
good. Look at his free throw.
80, 84, 100.
All I got to say on this is enjoy your fantasy championship, Shan.
I don't see any way he loses unless he gets.
It's not true. Not true.
Moving on.
I'm going to get him off. Sorry.
Another big one. Ja Morant, average draft position of 19, current ranking on totals 103. And this is a combination, like a little bit of both. It's a combination of some injury, but also his combination of stats just doesn't get you what you need, really.
No. And what is he on averages? 70 something?
He was 80 yesterday. Oh, so Howie, that could be the difference between our ranks. I took mine yesterday, and they change every day.
Yeah.
And they change after the games on Josh Lloyd. Well done, fucking Josh Lloyd. They change after the games are played, so that explains the differences. 76 currently, so very close to what Shen said.
Yeah, so not great. I mean, even if you're looking at a difference of ADP of 19 to ranking of 76, it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And I had a look at Ja came up on my list too, Dave, and the reason for him ranking 80 as opposed to, I don't know, what would you have been hoping, maybe not hoping, but maybe reasonably expecting rank?
Look, I would have
40?
taken, so that's
30 something?
I would have expected him to rank sort of in the 40s, maybe the 30s. I would have taken him a bit higher than that just because
he's Ja.
He's Ja, but also that like some of the volume you like, you're prepared to accept some of the negatives, you're prepared to accept some of the turnovers and things like that.
So where it is, he's gone down on both percentages and turnovers from himself last year. So where if you were buying into Ja, you were hoping for subtle improvement across the board. Instead, he's gone down in percentages and turnovers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be devil's advocate on this. I think there's a counter case to be made. How much did he cost in our auction league? Does anyone have a sense of how much he cost? Was it $32, something of that order?
I thought it was more. I thought it was more than that, but
I'm not sure.
40, maybe something like that. I was into Jar as well. I didn't go into Jar thinking, oh, he's going to rank higher this year. I went into it with the mindset, I'll position my team around his negativities to get the most of his positivities. Just as a correlation, I grabbed DeRozan on the same basis, and DeRozan's been far better than I thought he would be. But my price I was paying for DeRozan was with eyes wide open, that DeRozan wouldn't get steals, wouldn't get blocks, wouldn't get threes. I knew all this going in. And that would affect his rank, but his impact on my team, if I structured my team right, would be still very, very good. Jar's got that about him. He's got the 9 or so assists, the 27, 28 points. He might be Rondo. Rondo used to be this way as well. If you structure your team right, you can still take these guys high, even though you know they're going to be lower ranked.
No, I get all that. I get all that. And I think we all build that into how much we're willing to pay for guys. And I think everyone would. He's a bit like Luka in that regard. Luka and Jar, because they do these particular categories and can carry you in certain ways, everyone will pay a little bit more than they're worth. Here, we paid our GM who got him paid $31.
Okay, that's actually less than I thought.
I think that's really good.
I thought. Yeah, but still, you don't want to pay. You're still not happy paying $31 for
it's
a
not
guy
ideal.
ranked 80.
No.
You expect more, but he has the potential to improve from here. I mean, there's still half a season to go.
And I've paid $50, $60 for LeBron when he was ranking 24, 25, and I stand by that as well. I came close seconds in those years as well. As long as you structure it right and you know you go in with your eyes wide open, I still think that's a legitimate strategy.
Yeah, if it fits your team value, you'd be happy to pay whatever you see them as valued as, rather than what the perception is of with other GMs is always, a little bit generic.
I've got one more for you guys before we open it up. Before we open it up to further discussion, one for Howie. Kawhi Leonard, average draft position 26, current rank on totals 229.
He's ranked 50 something.
Totals.
He's ranked 50 something on averages, so he's improving. But here's the problem: you get Kawhi, and I was really interested in Kawhi at the start of the year. You think because he's solid, he's actually always been a bit of a vanilla stat line, but he's been so consistent. The consistency is kind of lacking at the moment. In any 4-game period, he'll play a great one, a decent one, a bad one, and not one.
Yeah.
So that's an ugly thing to have to manage, especially in the dark days of January when every motherfucker is sitting out for this or that ailment. Yeah. And you just can't call on one of your best players. It's very, very.
You've committed an average draft position of 26, so a third-round pick, an early third-round pick, and everybody else that took an early third-round pick that wasn't Kawhi Leonard have guys that are accumulating volume stats for their teams, and you picked a guy who's delivered you 229th worth of total stats.
So problematic. Interestingly, Dave, in my public league, I'm going really well in my public head-to-head. Someone dropped Kawhi, and I committed $35 to grab him, and he's kind of going pretty well for me at the moment. I'm suddenly annihilating everyone I come up against. It's just that extra icing.
I mean,
but it's that classic thing. It's what you pay. It is ironic. Actually,
I'm glad you've got him, Howie. I'm glad because it means you're across him.
I thought Howie was getting soft on Kawhi, actually.
Look, this is the thing.
It's all about the value. It's all about what you pay.
We've been saying from the beginning of this podcast that Howie is the foremost Kawhi expert in the Southern Hemisphere. And so I would expect him to pick up Kawhi Leonard when he's ready to be picked up. God damn it. All right.
I wanted him in the preseason too. Kerem and I were going head-to-head on the bidding, and I was just like, 45, no, he wasn't. He was 41 or 2.
It was a lot.
Way. Yeah. What the fuck? I was hoping 36, 37. So yeah.
Okay, I've got a beautiful anomaly to add in someone to Dave's list who you didn't quite get to, and Nick will appreciate this. Nick, how much did you pay for Trae Young on draft day? Do you remember?
I was about to mention him. I didn't pay all that much, actually. I can't recall.
$49, and guess what he was ranked yesterday?
50-something?
49.
Hey, there you go.
He's on my list of underperformers. I've got him written down here, and just to throw one back at Shan, the other guy I've got him next to is Desmond Bain. So I think he was one of the guys that I think I mentioned a little bit earlier. We've got a lot of these kind of traditionally good point guards that have underperformed to varying degrees. So you've got Damian Lillard, you've got Devin Booker, not a traditional, but Bain and Trae Young. These are the kind of guys that, look, they're not underperforming heaps, but there's a lot of room for them to get a lot better. I'd probably throw Ja Morant in that to a lesser extent because he's less traditional as well, probably more of a main kind of.
Even Darius Garland is down on both totals and ranks and averages, so I was expecting more from him.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of room for people that have got this team and they've spent your $49 or whatever it is on a Trae Young. There's a lot of room for those guys to just go whooshka, and all of a sudden these teams are right up the pointy end of the thing. And if you happen to be one of those teams and you're holding Trae Young and you're already up the top, you know, who knows? That could be the difference in those last couple of months.
Are you
just
talking
putting
about
a
yourself
little
there,
warning
Nick?
shot. Just putting a little warning shot out there to the other guys, because I know we're all up at the pointy end of our league, so it's good.
It's true. There's a lot of competition here.
But yeah, no, he was also on my list, so
Nick
good point, Shan.
I think Nick just declared himself the winner. That's what I heard.
I heard that too.
No, Shan is the
being
winner
recorded?
by a country mile after he's bloody. I haven't seen a fleecing like that since I watched Jason and the Argonauts back in the early 80s.
I
with
knew you were
my
going to
man
reference
Chris and
that.
Shan.
The golden fleece.
It was a golden fleece because it's a golden championship, which you've just basically secured. Shan was actually asking me if I knew a good carpenter to kind of make a new trophy cabinet for him. So, yeah, Shan, I'll send you his details.
So we wanted to do a segment on what we got wrong. Look, it would be fair to say that there have been some grandiose statements made on this podcast since we kicked it off at the start of the season. Some have proven to be wise in retrospect, others not so wise. So I thought we'd give everybody a chance to, come clean, get something off their chest. It's a new year, New Year's resolutions, fresh start. So who wants to start with this one? What did you get wrong? Nick, what did you get wrong?
Well, I've got a couple of things wrong, but one of them I'm going to put a little asterisk next to it, or asterisk, whatever, however you say that. So you can have a look at this. So what did I get wrong? I think we all know what the top one's about. Luka Doncic. I may have made a comment now. Tell me
Infamous
if I'm
comment.
wrong, but I believe it was something along the lines is I can see him pushing up towards potentially something stupidly high, like 90% free throw at some stage in his career.
I think it was 94. I think I remember hearing 94.
94? Fuck me dead. What was I smoking? Anyway, so yeah, let's have a look at his month to date. So he obviously started, 78. We're getting towards 80. Nick's getting a little bit excited about his boy here. Bang, 69. And then
Nice.
75 and 78. So maybe, if I was willing to reload and go again, now I'm getting up to that point again. I'm not going to go there. I've actually cooled off. I don't think he's ever going to get above 90%. So yeah, I was wrong on that one, guys.
That's a bold call that he won't get above 90, but we'll see how you go.
Look, he may get above 90 for a month at some stage in his career when he's injured after playing
On a
one
leap
game.
year.
In a game.
Maybe in the
Yeah,
off-season.
he plays one game that month
Off
and he shot 100%.
He shelved the Bavarian cream
and-
pies and came back in good shape, but didn't translate
Bavarian
to free
cream
throw
pies?
glory.
Bavarian
All
cream
right.
pie.
No, that's
Nick,
only
please stand up.
fantasy.
So you also, I get the feeling that you also wanted to say a heartfelt apology to Miles Turner, Nick.
No, well, I do, and I've already done that. Like I did that, I think I did that on the second podcast or something when he had like 7 blocks. I'm
You
like,
did.
shit, dude, sorry, man, you're tough. I called him Mr. Glass. I called him soft. He's come out there and he's beasted it this season. He was one of those big shot improver guys. I'm just a little bit wary because I have a look at these games played. And apart from 2016-17, where he played over 30 minutes a game, 81 games, he's getting to that period now where I'm like, shit,
Injury
is this a
time.
Shea Gilgeous-Alexander? Maybe I could trade you Miles for Shea or something like that, Dave, because I reckon they're both going to fall over
You should do that.
each
Dave.
other and be out for the season. So
He was
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
today,
Well-
wasn't he?
who's this, Miles?
Sorry, Howie.
I'm watching some games in a few minutes after the podcast. Is that it, Nick? Is that all is they all the ones you've wanted to make amends on?
Everything else I've said has been pure gold. They're the only two slightly off
Can anybody
statements.
think of anything that they feel as though Nick probably should be apologising for?
Well,
Throw it
I
up
did.
there.
From our the podcast that Dave ruined and we couldn't publish. I actually took
podcast pay.
I took down a quote from Nick from that podcast. I just jotted it down and kept it for posterity. Posterity, Shan, is that the right word? Have I used the right
That's
word?
the one.
That's good.
That'll do.
You kept a receipt. That's what we call it.
I kept a receipt, and we projected our top 10s, and I had AD in my top 10 on averages. I clarified that it would be on averages.
Okay.
And Nick said to me he disagreed that he would be, and the quote was that I jotted down: "AD is shit. when will you learn? You are a bad person and you should feel bad. So I just want to.
Oh shit! I'm sorry, man.
Oh, that's great. I don't even remember that. Brilliant.
No, I remember that. That's exactly what he said.
Oh,
Thank you,
Oh,
Shan.
look, there's
That's
elements of
fantastic.
truth in that quote, Howie. So, yeah.
Thank you, Howie. We
looks
were all
he's
dumber for having
Howie
heard
looks
that.
like he's feeling pretty good right now. Oh well, what can you do?
No, look, I'm sorry, guys. I was wrong. You know, AD isn't shit.
All right, Howie, what have you got to apologise for?
A couple of things. So one of them happened during the season when he made a smart alecky comment about Jaren Jackson Jr. Shannon just traded for him and then
Yes,
had the
that's
theory
right.
that he would be back in 2 days. And he fucking was. He did come back in 2 days. And I said to Shan, I don't think so, Shan. And I laughed in his face and I was wrong. I was definitely 100% wrong about that. That happened during the season, though.
Do you want some funny background to why I made that prediction and just how lucky you can get in fantasy sometimes? I was trying to trade for Jaren Jackson, and so I was searching Twitter for any news, and I saw a tweet of him on the bench in street clothes dancing, and some Grizzlies fan going, "Oh, this means he'll be back soon." And I went, "Yeah, it might mean that." That's what I was basing it on.
That's a deep cut, but I like it.
So I was
You know what,
definitely wrong
Howie?
about that.
It's an easy mistake to make that one with a guy like Jaren Jackson.
The other one, even though we've hung shit on Doncic, I was not. Doncic has been way better than I thought he was going to be, and I've always been a big fan of Doncic. I'd never bagged him as badly as Shan has in the past, but I also thought his statistical problems would always keep him out of the top 15, and I don't think that anymore. And I think next year's draft with our auction, I feel like Doncic and Wembanyama, there could be bidding wars all around. Couldn't speak more highly than Doncic, I don't think. In fact, what the fuck are Dallas doing? Put some fucking guys that can play around him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
for fuck's sake.
I mean, eventually he's going to walk if they don't get their shit together. Fair enough. All right. Any others, Howie?
I didn't tell anyone, but I secretly thought Julius Randle was shit, and he's been good.
Mm-hmm.
Is there others? And the other thing is, I can't remember them, but everyone has selective memory when it comes to these things. So I was hoping maybe you guys would have one that I've forgotten.
I can't think of anything.
No, we've been
I
touching
don't know.
base with Kawhi every week, so
That's a good point. That's
we've got that
probably
covered off.
Yeah, that's your biggest call.
I reckon he's been a bit lenient on Kawhi. I reckon you should apologise to for that.
Look,
Let's not go there.
I'll do mine. I don't have a lot, which is interesting, I think, considering I tend to be a bit outspoken. I've got a lot of strong opinions when it comes to NBA basketball. I think one that I didn't say on this podcast, but I was very close to turning into a unreasonably strong opinion was was talking about the small forward for the Cavs.
Okoro.
No.
Who the hell is that small forward?
He had cancer on his
Levert.
Karis LeVert. I was getting ready to suggest that Karis LeVert was the worst player that got lots of minutes in the NBA because he just pounds the basketball on the perimeter. He just dribbles around. He never does anything with it.
That's not the first time you've made such a prediction, Dave. Do you remember when
I do like a little bit of hyperbole, I will say that. Now, look, but I didn't say that on the podcast, so I can back out of that one. Look, what I will say, though, is I've been very severe, very harsh on the New Jersey Nets, the Brooklyn Nets in general, and in particular, Kyrie and Kevin Durant. I was down on Kevin Durant in our podcast that didn't get recorded properly. I thought that there were too many questions coming into the season. The fact that he kind of like kicked up a fuss in the offseason and demanded to be traded, I thought there were a lot of red flags there. But geez, he's just been brilliant. This might be his best
he's been good
fantasy season that he's ever played. So there you go. That shows me.
Yeah,
and Kyrie,
unlucky.
Kyrie Irving. I mean, geez, that guy. I mean, when he's got his headspace right. And he seems to have that this year, in spite of that wobble early on. You know, the slight little banning. But in spite of that, he's been really good. I mean, he's producing stats and he's ranking really highly. He's been fantastic. So yeah,
he's a hell of a player.
Rank 15.
And geez, the Nets are killing it right now. You know, they've been on a crazy win streak. Let's see if they can sustain it with Durant out. But looking good. I thought they were done. I thought they were ready to blow the whole thing up as a franchise and start fresh. But it seems I was
All
wrong.
right. Shall I cover off mine?
Yeah, go for it.
Yep, just got one, and I'll keep it brief because we've been talking for ages. But you boys described me as constantly sitting on the fence, and I think that was very accurate. And you pushed me into making some bolder claims, and I made one about Donovan Mitchell, saying he was overachieving earlier on because
You always
I
hedge
saw-
your bets, Sam.
yeah. Yeah. And I thought with Donovan that he was going so amazing because Darius Garland was down. And I thought, he's getting all of that Darius Garland minutes. And I thought as soon as Darius, not that he's not going to get his minutes, but I mean the usage. He was getting, like, the ball was his on every possession. And I thought that would change when Garland came back. And no, Donovan's still ranked 11 and he's taken a leap this year and got that wrong.
I think the New York Knicks are going to be ruining them not pushing harder for that trade in the offseason because they seem to be in the box seat to get him.
Well, it's
Jalen
funny you
Brunson.
bring the Knicks up as well. We had a conversation 2 weeks ago about the Knicks, and I don't think they've lost since I didn't see today. And I'm
that's a good
I
point.
didn't see today, so don't tell me. But they haven't lost since I declared they were good, and you guys declared they were the worst thing to happen to basketball since.
No, that's fair.
I think we were arguing different things though. Like I was
Maybe.
arguing that they've been one of the worst franchises over my lifetime.
And
that's true.
And I'm arguing, and always have been arguing that oh god, I'm useless with names today. Their coach
Tibbs.
Tibbs.
No.
Tibbs teams always overperform during the regular season and underperform in the playoffs. And I just don't think that they don't have the franchise player with the personality, the drive, the mongrel to succeed in the playoffs. I don't think. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. The other thing we got really wrong was that all of us claimed on Christmas Day predictions that there was absolutely no way that the Warriors were going to beat the Grizzlies. Oops.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Game by game in the NBA is impossible to predict. Anything happens.
All
Can I
right,
just put in two things?
Yep, go for it.
I think that and we've been talking about a lot of shit we got wrong. Just two quick things. I don't need to talk about it too much. One, I was right about Zion. Thank you. And number two, I was right about the Spurs.
Yes,
Same.
you were.
Thank you.
You were. They're one of the worst records now.
Yeah.
I
I rest
don't
my
think they're
case.
the worst record, though, are they? I think Detroit
No, they're not.
and
Houston.
Houston
is worse
are
than them.
shocking. They've got no culture, I don't know, whatever it is that allows a team to overperform their talent level. Houston just does not have it.
Vets.
Not
They got no
Well,
vets.
That's interesting as well, because I don't know if you guys remember in the offseason, I declared that Houston were going nowhere fast.
Yeah.
And
It's a good call.
I didn't get a lot of support.
Mm.
I just think you just can't be in the wilderness for 5 or 6 years and expect we've got all these good young players, they're all going to suddenly be your fucking contenders. Sometimes it happens, like with Memphis and shit, but sometimes it doesn't.
I was not expecting Houston
More
to
often
be
than not, it
rising up
doesn't.
the ranks this season. I always expected they'd get a really high draft pick this coming year as well.
But for me, Shan, though, like they've got some really good players like Şengün and Jabari Smith Jr. But they're putting the ball in the hands of two guys that I don't think are franchise leaders. And they seem to be the culture leaders as well. They seem to be the guys that are making all the noises in the huddles.
Yep.
No, I don't like what I'm seeing.
Here's something that could haunt me. I'm willing to say it on the podcast. I think Jalen Green has the Ben Gordons about him.
I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan.
I'm more positive on him than
Ben
you guys.
Gordon's about him.
Got the Ben Gordons. Got the
All right,
dirty
so he's
Ben
going to
Gordons.
disappear in a couple of
we're
years.
taking that receipt, but I think we're both
He just touched it.
we're both on it.
He doesn't like a shot. He's not willing to chuck fucking
No,
Costanza.
absolutely, and he's only shooting about 40%. But
I'll take the opposite on that. I'm not a massive Jalen Green fan, but I definitely think he's going to be a good to very good player.
He was nice in the second half of last season. I was expecting to see a leap, but he's been worse than he was in the second half of last season. This season so far.
Yep.
So
Don't forget, Ben Gordon was awesome at different times.
Yeah,
Ben
he
Gordon
had
in his
his
first
moments.
couple of years were like, fuck, this guy's going to average 35 points per game. Anyway, I'll live and die by it. I obviously
guys,
have no fucking clue how
do
it'll
we
be.
want to do a Kawhi watch before we sign off?
Well, I'll just reiterate. I've already said it. He has 4 at the moment. He's playing much better. 1 game great, 1 game decent, One game shit, and one game not at all. The not at all is expected. The decent and the good are expected. What's with the every now and again shit game?
Yeah, just
He has a
throwing
game
up
where
a
he has like 12 and 6 with 5 and 17 from the field. I just think he's labouring under the injury still, and I think he lacks a bit of
He needs
motivation.
reps.
22 and 21.
The Clippers are
They're not going.
awful. That's an
Yeah,
interesting
so-
thing. Maybe it's something we can talk about, but and it's more of an NBA thing. But geez, there's this big log jam of teams that are around about 50% in the
big log
league at the
jam,
moment.
mate.
Oh, geez.
The Lakers are 19 and 22, and we're 22 on the basis of losing everyone to lose the 22 game. We're okay. We're only a
You're
couple
not
of
that
games
far
behind.
away. No, because everybody else is around the same record.
Back in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
God, it's log jam. Yeah.
Thanks everybody for watching. Do the normal thing
I'm
of,
off to watch some basketball.
subscribing and liking and all of that kind of stuff. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
See you guys.